Hey everyone, and welcome. So for 2025, it looks like Apple is really shaking things up with its iPhone strategy. And that brings us to the big question we're tackling today. Are they finally packing some real pro-level power into the standard, more affordable iPhone 17? Let's dive in and find out.
Because really, that's the decision we all face, isn't it? Every single year, we're weighing the cool new features against that price tag. This whole explainer is designed to break down whether the standard iPhone 17 finally hits that perfect sweet spot. You know, the one between features and value that makes it the smartest possible choice for most people out there.
Okay, so let's start with the fundamentals. What exactly is the iPhone 17 bringing to the table? We're going to run through the core specs first just to get a feel for the kind of machine we're talking about before we get into all the really exciting upgrades.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the mix of old and new. I mean, look at that display, 120 Hz ProMotion. That is huge for a standard model. Then you've got the new A19 Bionic chip, a dual 48-megapixel camera system, and, finally, base storage that starts at a very respectable 256 gigs. But keep an eye on that USB-C port speed. We are definitely coming back to that one.
And, running the whole show is iOS 26, which is introducing something Apple's calling a liquid glass UI. Now, this isn't some massive redesign. Think of it more as a bunch of tiny animation tweaks that are all about making every single tap, swipe, and scroll feel incredibly fluid and responsive. It's one of those quality-of-life touches that just makes the whole experience feel more polished.
All right, now this is where the story gets really interesting. We're going to look at the features that up until now you had to shell out for a Pro model to get. This, right here, is the absolute heart of the iPhone 17's appeal. And boom! This slide just lays it all out. The display is the absolute star of the show. Getting a 120 Hz ProMotion and an always-on screen in a non-Pro iPhone is a total game-changer for just everyday use. Everything just feels buttery smooth. Then you add that major camera upgrade with two 48-megapixel sensors and the new A19 chip. Yeah, you can see how the value really starts to stack up here.
Okay, can we just pause for a second and appreciate this? 256 gigabytes, the base model. Finally, in 2025 with giant photos and even bigger apps, this isn't just a nice little bonus. It's a necessity. It makes the entry-level phone feel genuinely usable for the long haul without you having to constantly stress about running out of space. And this really is the bottom line, isn't it? The iPhone 17 is basically a Pro Lite. It's bringing those truly high-end features like that amazing display and camera quality to a much wider audience. We're talking about people who want that premium feel without paying for every single bell and whistle that the top-tier models have.
But of course, it can't all be good news, right? To get to that lower price, Apple had to make some very deliberate cuts. Now, these aren't necessarily deal breakers for everyone, but they are the compromises you're making to get that great value. And here is the first really big one. Yeah, it's got USB-C, but just look at that speed gap. The standard iPhone 17 is stuck with old-school USB 2.0 speeds, which max out at 480 megabits per second. The Pro models, they can be more than 20 times faster. Now, if you're a creator moving huge video files from your phone to your computer, this is going to be a massive bottleneck.
And then we have battery life. The reporting is pretty clear on this. If you are a heavy user, this phone might not get you through a full day. So if you're constantly gaming, shooting video, or have your GPS running, you'll probably find yourself looking for a charger before bedtime. It's adequate, but it's definitely not exceptional.
And just to round out the compromises, there are a few other things to keep in mind. It doesn't have the fancy cooling system of the Pro models, so it can get a little warm if you're really pushing it. The camera, while great, is missing a true telephoto lens, so your zoom is pretty limited. And the charging speed? Well, it's fast, but it's still not keeping up with some of its Android rivals.
So, we've looked at the good and we've looked at the not so good. Now it's time to bring it all together with the most important piece of the puzzle, the price. This is where we figure out if those compromises are actually worth the savings and who this phone is really built for. And the price story really changes depending on where you are in the world. In the US, it kicks off at a super competitive $799. But if you're in a market like India, import duties and taxes can push that price tag up to almost $1,000, which completely changes the conversation about its value and pits it against a whole different set of competitors. All right, let's break it down then. Based on everything we've just gone through, who should actually go out and buy the iPhone 17? Look, if you're an everyday user, someone who browses the web, texts, takes awesome photos, and just wants a super reliable, smooth phone that's going to last, this is your device. It is absolutely ideal. It gives you that premium Apple experience, especially with that gorgeous new display, without the Pro tax for a bunch of features you would probably never even touch.
However, if you're a power user, a content creator, a serious mobile gamer, or someone who lives on their phone for work, you should probably upgrade. Seriously, that slow data transfer, the average battery life when you push it, and the lack of a telephoto lens, those are going to be daily frustrations. The Pro model is just worth the extra cash for you.
And finally, let's talk to the pure value seeker. If your top priorities are things like having the most versatile zoom camera possible or ridiculously fast charging speeds, you should honestly take a hard look at the Android competition. In this price range, there are other flagships that often just give you more hardware flexibility for your money.
Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. For years, the standard iPhone has always just been seen as good enough. But with all these pro-level features finally trickling down, the iPhone 17 really forces us to ask a totally new question. For the vast majority of us, has the good enough phone finally become the best phone? That's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.